You know how important your inner voice is for your life, for your future, for your mental health, for your relationships. The inner voice is so underestimated, but it is a powerful tool. And I want to talk to you today about where that inner voice even comes from, because often that inner voice isn't even your own. But to understand the inner voice and get to know it is critical to better your life, your quality of life, and really shape your future. The problem is the inner voice is often underestimated, and the power of the inner voice is often overlooked. But I want to start first by talking about the inner voice, especially the toxic, critical inner voice, and where it even comes from. Let's go take it back to the earliest days we remember of our childhood. The inner voice starts with, believe it or not, outer voices. And what do I mean by that? The voices of our parents, the voices of our teachers, the voices of our bullies. And when it's repeated enough and you're so young and you're being shaped and you're like a sponge just absorbing all this information, whether it's true or not, you start to believe it after a while. You start to not only believe what's being said to you, but you start to really take on the tones in which they're said to you as well. And slowly by slowly, we start to believe that about ourselves. And those outer voices are almost trapped in our inner world and become our own inner voice over time. So if you were scolded enough, told you weren't good enough, always being challenged to be better, and just not feeling worthy, then there's a high chance that same voice, that even if it's other people that were telling you in different ways or through their actions that you weren't worthy, you've now taken out on that outer voice and made it your own. And that's what happens over time because we're so young. First of all, you believe it when it's repeated and told by authority figures, especially. You really start to take it on as your own. And you're too young to gain that awareness and to check that inner voice. And that's why we find ourselves as adults still carrying the dialogues and the inner chatter of our past and our pains. For example, if you have a parent that's always worried about if you're going to be too cold when you leave the house, if you've eaten enough, if your grades aren't good enough, how are you doing in school? We take on that worry. If you have a worrisome inner voice, look around and see who did that come from and where did that come from? Because often enough, you can connect the dots. So every experience, good or bad, somehow adds to our inner voice. And when they're repeated enough, we start to believe them. Even when it comes to our teachers, when we go to school, that's a huge one. Whether it's the kids making fun of you, bullying you, pointing out certain things about you, and not one kid, two, three, you really start to believe it. Or if you have that relationship with your teacher who keeps calling you the bad kid, the class clown, these all contribute to our inner voices. All that criticism you took turns into negative self-talk. All of the internalizing and suppressing you've done turns into anger. and an angry inner chatter. Because the inner voice develops as soon as we develop our defenses. So whether we go quiet on people, whether we argue back, whatever it is, after a certain time, you get used to those defenses. And those are the things we do in our mind, whether our mouth opens or not. You got to understand they start by being outer voices, and we internalize them and turn them into our own internal dialogues. So you really got to be aware of what's your voice and what's not your voice. Your inner voice also comes from your heart. It's the voice of your heart. Your inner voice is your truth. Your inner voice is your intuition. But because there's so many voices coming at us, like I said, sometimes it's even hard to decipher which one is the voice of your truth and which one is a past pain that keeps coming up. Because there's so much information, there's so much power and knowledge in our hearts and our truth that we often ignore. And when it's so personal, it is our truth. But yet we shut that voice off and we listen to the others. And paying attention to the voice of our intuition, our truth, our heart is really a way to live that is unmatched. Because when you live from your heart, you live from your truth, you live from that authentic place, and you continue to listen to that voice, and you're able to turn off the rest of the voices and quiet them down, you won at life. There's so much power in listening to your heart and following your heart. But how are you going to follow and listen to your heart when you don't even know it's your heart speaking? So, like I said in number one, that voice coming from external voices, our conditionings, our traumas, our parents, our upbringing, which often aren't ours, you need to really separate that from when your heart is speaking to you and your intuition is speaking to you and your truth is knocking at your door. Because the mind will easily and often take over the voice of the heart. When something happens initially, your gut instincts, that's what they say, go with your gut instincts, your first choice, because that's often the heart. Until the mind comes in and shuts the heart up and fills the heart up with buts, what ifs, worries, fears, just irrational perspectives that aren't even always true. But again, if you don't know how to listen to the voice of your heart, then you're going to keep listening to the voice of your mind. You'll pass up opportunities in life. You will forego things that are actually meant for you. And it affects the quality of your life and what you do in this life. So do you understand how important that voice is? Because you will literally make decisions that aren't your truth or that aren't aligned with you because you couldn't tell that that was the voice of your heart, the right decision for you, but you gave into the fears of your mind. And how many of us do that? We literally talk ourselves out of things that are good for us, that are meant for us. And conversely, talk ourselves into things that are not good for us. How many times are you in a bad relationship, friends, romantic, whatever, and you don't listen to your heart? Every red flag, every gut-wrenching situation, you don't listen to that. But that one green flag, you're going to hang on to that because the mind wants to tell you, he's the one, she's the one. I can't let go. What am I going to do without them? All this is the mind. When the heart knows you can be free, you can be happy on your own, you deserve better. That's the heart. And how often do we just suppress it, quiet it, and shove it in the corner? So to really understand the voice of the heart versus the voice of the mind, game changer. Game changer. The other place that your voice, your inner voice, often your critical inner voice, your worrisome inner voice, your panicked inner voice comes in, because you're either living in the past or you're living in the future and you're not present. Because what happens when you're living in the past? You think about your mistakes. You think about maybe an argument that you didn't get to finish and what you should have said, and it's replaying this dialogue in your mind. Or if you're thinking about the future, you're worried. You have these irrational fears, wondering if this is going to work out, if that application is going to get accepted, if you're going to make the team, if you're going to be able to do X, Y, Z. So often that inner voice is made up. You got to understand the past is done and the future hasn't even happened yet. But yet our inner voice is so strong and so powerful that it can literally shake you up, your world, your internal system, your nervous system, just based on thinking about the future that again hasn't even happened yet. Or revisiting the past and the pain that has gone. It's gone. But yet we relive it by our inner voice, because that's the voice in our mind. So let me give you an example. You get into an argument with somebody. Maybe you don't say everything that's on your mind, your heart, but for the rest of the day, maybe even the next day or a couple days following, you're still going over what you should have said, what you could have said, what they said. It's just this ongoing dialogue. And in reality, that conversation has been done, but yet you keep carrying it on. So the inner voice comes from a lot of different directions, but often they are shaped and carry on throughout our lives until, again, you get intentional about it. So it's important. Don't live in the past. Don't live in the future. Live in the present. But it's not easy. But to know when that's happening is what the key is. Oh, shoot. Why is my mind in the past? Why are we still there? Let's bring it back. Why am I worrying about that? I don't need to think about that for another 6 months. Bring it back. So see, understanding, you can then make the adjustments and the moves you need to make to maintain peace within you. Because that inner voice will disturb your peace. It will ruin your day. It'll ruin your mood. It'll mess up your nervous system. Because that mind, the voice, becomes then an emotion, and that emotion seeps into your body and it throws you off. You know exactly how that trickle down process works. So just knowing that your inner voice is your voice, you're the one that lives with that voice since day one, and you'll continue to live with that voice. That is one thing that's sticking with you and is going with you. So to get to know your inner voice, to know where it comes from, to separate your inner voice from the others is a game changer for your life. It's almost like start to build this panel. You understand the panel of judges within you. You know which one's your higher self. You know which one's your inner child. You know which one's your past pain body self. You know which one's your worrying future self. You know which one's your mom and dad's voice that telling you you're not worthy enough. You know which one's that past relationship that made you feel not your confident self or worthy. really understand all of them somehow have a seat at the table because we've allowed it for so many years. But you can take the chair away. You're the one that continues to give those personas within you a seat at your table until you become aware and until you start to build tools and get intentional about what voice you're going to be listening to and who you're going to allow. So to really become aware of what you are saying to yourself, whether it's you're brushing your teeth, whether it's when you're in the shower, whether it's when you're driving, when you wake up, when you're going to sleep, what is your inner voice saying to you? Really become aware of that is key. And to know where it comes from so that you can really start to separate you from your inner voice. Because often those voices aren't even ours. It could be our triggered inner child. Again, it can be criticism from the past that we believed. It can be my higher self. Because the other thing is, the inner voice isn't just bad. It's not always critical and toxic and mean. It's also encouraging. It also keeps us calm. It just never shuts off. It's always on. But to learn how to use it is the trick. And to learn whose voice is that really? Because again, it's not always ours. So really starting to listen to your inner voice and then understand whose voice that is, where it's come from. Is it a childhood thing? Is it just a habit? Is really the first step in getting to know your own personal inner voice and dialogue within. And I'm actually doing a series about the inner voice. Next, we're going to get into building a strong inner voice, making friends with your inner voice, understanding it, because again, it's not going to go away. So you might as well put in the work, that inner work, and really join forces with your inner voice. I'm also going to do a video on how to control and quiet that voice when it comes up. Because you can get familiar, you can have the awareness about your inner voice, but when push comes to shove and you're in the situation where it is taking up your mind space, it's overwhelming, your inner voice will not shut up, and it's actually affecting your emotions and perhaps your productivity, ruining your day. What are those things you can do in the moment to zap it and shut it up? I'm going to do a video on that as well, to have your little techniques, your tools in your pocket. Because knowing how powerful it is and how negatively it can affect you, it is so important to have those tools ready. So I'm going to do a whole video on that as well. And then last, because once you have it managed and kind of under control, how to use your inner voice for your future and to manifest your best motherfucking life is another video I'm going to do. Because if you're letting your inner voice, especially your critical, toxic inner voice, just run wild and say whatever the hell it wants, when it wants, that is really impacting your quality of life and you don't even know it. It's impacting your sleep, your mood, your relationships, everything. Because when you don't check that inner voice, it'll repeat and it'll show you, it'll get really loud in relationships when you're triggered. Then you have no choice but to listen up to it. I'm sure we've all been through enough experiences to know that inner voice comes in and it's not always nice. It's not always pleasant. So really becoming aware, building a strong relationship with it, understanding how to manage it, how to deal with it when it comes up, and then how to use it for your future and to manifest your dreams and your desired life. I'm going to do a video on that too. So please check out the playlist I've made for your inner voice, because getting to know your inner voice and the investment in this knowledge will pay back tremendously. And It's my mission, because my inner voice has played with me, let me tell you. It's my mission to teach you what I've learned to really make that inner voice work in my favor. No longer being an enemy that's trapped in my mind, like that unwanted roommate that just comes in whenever they want, disturbs your peace. No, no. If it doesn't have to be like that, why are you making it like that? Really invest in getting to know your inner voice and working with it and using it to better your life and using it in your favor. I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in again today. And I will see you for the next episode. Please take care of yourself. Really listen up. What is it saying to you? See you next time. Thank you for all the love and support. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.